Okay, hello everybody. So welcome to this very special live session that I wanted to do, right? And I'm very excited. And today I'm particularly thrilled to receive somebody I'm sure you will love to see. It's John Moore. He's the main coordinator for the Africa Awareness Week, 2025 Morehouse College. I don't know if you heard about it before, but if not, that's the time for you just to find a little bit more. So for over 30 years, this incredible event has been a platform for really impactful conversation on the development of Africa. And this year theme, so we're talking about shaping the Africa sustainable future. It couldn't be more timely. And what we're going to do in here in this session together, so we're going to be diving into the history, but also the purpose of the Africa Awareness Week, AAW, and explore some exciting panels and activities that are planned, and also discover how this event continues to inspire action towards sustainability across the continent. And I believe whether you are a student, whether you are a professional, so a company passionate about the future of Africa, I believe you definitely want to stay tuned. So we're gonna get started. So with John, and then yeah, he's gonna tell us a lot more about this session. So guys, what I would say, just stay tuned for now. Hello again. So, how are you doing? So, I'm Tony T. I'm the founder and CEO of Renewables in Africa. What we do is we raise awareness about renewables energy, but also sustainability. If you are interested to break or expand into Africa, we are your eco bridge to this market, and we can help you with visibility, with leads, but also deals. Or if you're looking to decarbonize your business, we again at your eco bridge, and we can lead you to sustainable pathway, and we can help you with carbon footprint assessment, carbon reduction strategies, and many more. But as I say today, I want to introduce to you to somebody obviously who I'm sure you would love to see, is John Moore, who is actually the main person with regard to the Africa Awareness Week. So, John, can you hear me now?
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
It's great to see you, John. So I was very excited as I was saying to people before, because I knew that we're gonna have a very good conversation. But before we dive into the question that I have for you, I was actually wondering whether you can tell us a little bit about yourself and also your role in organizing this event. That'd be great to know.
Sure. So, Africa Awareness Week as an initiative began at Morehouse College in 1995. I was a student at Morehouse from 2000 to 2005. I really got involved in the initiative in a meaningful way around 2003 under the tutelage of Dr. Hewitt, who's a professor in the sociology department at Morehouse. So, I would say I came to Morehouse as a freshman in the year 2000, always sort of, Pan-African minded just because of the way I was raised. My father was that way. He thought that way and he, raised us that way. So I was always looking for other like-minded individuals on campus. And I really found a home in this coordinating team for Africa Awareness Week. And I really started to put my back into it. Morehouse's history department, the sociology department, back then, the Africana Studies Department did not exist, but they actually have one now. Those three departments in particular have really been the backbone of this effort. And, I've now had the benefit of working with several professors on the campus for such a long time. We know each other very well, and it's been a great working relationship with them over the years. And I've grown professionally by working on this effort, I can say in so many ways. And I'll pause there. I could say so much more, but working on this effort was work I was doing on myself, if that made sense. So,
Yeah, excellent. And effectively, I think for the short time I've been involved with you guys, I could definitely see that a lot of work has been going to this event, over the years. But I was actually wondering, because for a lot of people, that may be the first time they're hearing about the this awareness week. So, what can you tell us about the inspiration and the history behind, this event, the Africa Awareness Week, and what has been the driving force for the success over the last 30 years? What would you say?
so in 1995, and I would say from 95 until roughly 2003, The initiative started off very much as an academic effort, right? So all the panel discussions would unpack various issues associated or dealing with the continent, things, about politics, economics, unpacking issues that were plaguing the continent, obviously, every country. And it was never kind of like a concerted effort towards a direct outreach, I would say, just in my opinion, to Africa. In 2003, we made a concerted effort to kind of come down from the ivory tower, and it was a very intentional thing that we were doing. We started talking about service learning activities, fundraising to send students to to Africa rather, to do service learning projects, making sure we had some sort of representation from someone on the continent at all of the panels. So you really saw that shift happen in 2003. As a result of that, we ended up partnering with Wyclef Jean and the Yele Haiti initiative around 2003. I would say that was one of the first times we sent students, I think I can comfortably say that, to the continent to in a meaningful way do service learning projects. We were doing forest reforestation projects. Everything kind of started to grow in a more meaningful way. And I'd say there was like 3 core initiatives. There was reforestation projects. There were solar installation projects. We had students installing solar panels on schools through grant funding, schools in Africa. And then there was the creation of what was called the Morehouse Pan-African Global Exchange Program. So through the Morehouse Pan-African Global Exchange Program, students were getting offered opportunities to do study abroad in various places in Africa. And it was a very much African focused effort. So I was proud to be a part of that. Of course, I graduated in 2005. The work was carried on by Professor Hewitt, Professor Livingston in the Africana Studies, the now, founded Africana Studies Department, the History Department. And over the years, it just continued to evolve. I would come back here and there as a guest speaker and helping out from here and there. It kind of whittled out and died for a number of years around 2015. And then I showed back up in 2020. And I'll talk a lot about the whole rebranding that we've done through since 2020. But, as we continue our dialogue, but I would say that in 2020, the real impetus to really, in a meaningful way, kick things back off had a lot to do with the year of return that Ghana did. And everyone was so excited. And it's COVID. So myself and many of my friends are very jealously watching as our friends are on the continent, having a blast. And, we're sitting here at home and can't leave quarantine. So we had a whole row view to the year of return. So actually the 2020 sort of rebranding, kicking back off of Africa Awareness Week had a lot to do with honoring Ghana's year of return efforts. And since then, for the past 5 years, we've been ramping things up in a very meaningful way. So
that's actually very interesting because obviously what we believe could have killed the event with COVID actually served to revive it to some extent, which is actually quite admirable. I think you mentioned about reforestation project and also solar project. So I noticed that this year theme is focused around the Africa Sustainable Future. So why do you think sustainability is such an important topic for the continent right now? And how does the event align with that vision?
I think when you talk about sustainability, when you talk about green jobs, which is very much a very meaningful part of my whole career, right? I've worked in the world of sustainability for 20 plus years now, doing green building projects all across the country. And I have seen how strong that has been for the economy here in the USA. Yeah. I'm now looking at places like Burkina Faso, and I'm actually rocking my custom-made shirt right now.
I can see that.
I just recently got made, right? I'm a huge fan of Burkina Faso right now. These folks are just oh my God, killing it, right? They just launched a whole line of EV charging station cars. I mean, we really wanted to do a panel discussion focused around them this year. We couldn't pull it off with everything going on. But I live by the motto of a mathematician whose work I've studied for some time. His name is Buckminster Fuller. For anyone who's not heard of him, he's got a quote that says, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we find ourselves, those of us who consider ourselves Pan-Africanists, those who want to see a sustainable future for Africa, in the face of, America revoking almost all of its support via the USAID department, shutting down the USAID department, in the face of, sanctions being put on South Africa by our current government. I mean, it's a very direct statement that's being made, in my opinion, to Africa, which is, stand up without the support of the West. And that could feel harsh, but if you take it to heart and say, okay, let's get out here and compete, well, then it's just the gauntlet has been laid, right? So I think places like Burkina Faso are showing us what the sustainable future of Africa looks like, right? Taking control of local resources. For that reason, this year we are very focused on the Congo, right? So Monday's panels will kick off with a conversation about the Congo and the environmental injustices happening there, and how those folks are playing such a huge role in the tech industry in terms of the materials that they're providing without getting a meaningful return on their investment. So if we introduce industry to a city like the Congo, which, just to even say that right now sounds crazy, right? But I don't think it's a crazy or novel idea at all to think, what if instead of just being used to cultivate minerals for the technology industry, you actually started to focus on building industry on the ground. China did it, right? We have to take the very long road that China took towards starting manufacturing on the ground. I think we're going to have that conversation in a more meaningful way on Wednesday when we start talking about batteries and things of that nature, battery manufacturing. By the way, my good friend, childhood friend, Franklin Amu, agreed to join that panel. And I believe you might have interviewed him on this platform previously, but Franklin Amu is a childhood friend of mine. It's Brooklyn, baby, Brooklyn all day. We grew up on the streets of Brooklyn together, man. And it's Brooklyn versus the world, as they say. So Franklin is doing huge. He's working on a level, so many levels above mine in terms of actually directing investment funding to businesses in Africa that are looking to self-sustain and build meaningful manufacturing of scale. So that, for me, is the importance of sustainability, because when you say that word, it can mean so many different things to so many different people. To me, it means self-sustainability. It means, in the truest sense, being able to take care of oneself with everything that you need at your home, in your community, right? When you think about green building, it's all about solar panels so that you can have your energy created at your house. It's about rainwater cisterns so that you can have your water stored at your home. It's about, looking at your 3 scopes, right? And how far your scope emissions are going. How far do you have to go to get the resources that you need to sustain your community? We're talking about scope 3 emissions and applying that ideology to Africa. Well, how far does the average African have to go to get food, water, sustenance, things of that nature? You want to reduce that scope as much as possible for every individual on the continent. Hell of a task, right? But I think what we can do right now is start those conversations inside of an academic environment where they belong. The seeds of those ideas belong in the academic environment. So what better place to have these conversations than at Morehouse College?
Excellent. And that's interesting to hear about what you just said there, because you're right. So we are at the specific moment in time where obviously there is a new government in the US, which from obviously the initial decision doesn't seem to be very supportive of the sector for Africa, maybe most likely not. But it's important to have voices just like yourself, just so that people can remember that, beyond the government of any country, there's also other voices that you shouldn't be ignoring, and you wouldn't just wrap up one country on just the voice of one single person, even if it's a government, and think that everybody thinks the same way. That's why obviously I appreciate what you say, and that's what event like what Morehouse College is organizing, and a conversation like what we have right now is so important more than ever now. So talking about the event, I want to bring you back there because you started by giving us some ideas about what we're going to see in those panels. So maybe you can give a little bit more information about some of the key highlights and unique aspects of this year program, and why attendees should really be looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I think what's very unique this year is we're bringing in some former students, some alumni like myself, who actually run a consulting business that's doing work in Africa. And in a very meaningful way, we want to attach the work that they're doing to service learning opportunities for students,
Sure.
right? So again, just really leaning hard into this whole conversation about, no ivory tower academic exercises, tangible, real life opportunities for students to either academically or hands-on be involved in actual work happening on the continent. These individuals run a company and they've got a partnership with the University of Johannesburg, where they're doing battery research on sustainable solutions for battery manufacturing. That's our Wednesday panel. So you're going to actually, have an actual conversation going on there about some real live work, and it's going to be happening through the Environmental Justice and Sustainability Program at Morehouse. So this year we have the Environmental Justice and Sustainability Program at Morehouse partnering with the Africana Studies Department. These students are already studying this stuff, and all their academic work is revolving around this already. And all we're doing now is offering these students opportunities to engage in something beyond the classroom.
Yeah.
Right. And that for me is what's so exciting about this. Every year for Africa Awareness Week, we find new partners by just getting the word out, blasting the internet, posting things online. Inevitably, someone comes knocking and says, hey, you're doing that, I'm doing this, let's partner. Every year for the past 5 years that has happened. And, I'll give some more examples of that as we continue talking. But, this year, I think, the Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday panels in particular, which you'll be moderating, each one of those revolves around actual tangible projects that are happening. Thursday's panel is about water well projects that are being sponsored and worked on the continent by a nonprofit that's partnered with and working alongside the fraternity Q Sci-Fi. They're called CSR Ghana. This organization already hosts students from various HBCUs across the country, right? Howard University and all these other universities are already sending students there. So, you were on the planning meetings for this panel, and I said during the planning meetings, right? And I meant we mean to add Morehouse to that list. So we want to send students from Morehouse to work on your water well projects and then install those solar water pumps that you're talking about, right? We were on the coordination meeting, and he's only talking about problems, and all I'm hearing is solutions, right? He's like, I can't get to all these water wells and service them. If we put these solar panels on, how am I going to get to all of them and service them? And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, students, we'll make it an academic exercise, and we'll have the students service the panels. And you can almost 10x your labor force by partnering with universities and creating a revolving door of students doing service learning projects, right? So I I hear problems, I immediately think solutions, right? So in that way, just imagine how far we could go, right? That's Thursday. Friday is I would say almost becoming a series of panels at this point that we've been doing about solar, tracing all the way back to almost 2003. Um, the importance of solar and what it can do for the continent obviously can't be understated. We have had service learning projects where solar panels have been installed at schools, and it has made huge differences for students, villages, folks who have very little access to power in general in their local community, right? And now you have solar panels up, which allow students to study late into the night. They wouldn't have been able to study past sundown had these panels not been installed. I mean, just the implications of and the potential for solar to change things on the ground across the continent obviously can't be understated. We've had certain companies like Zola Electric. I highly encourage people to check them out. Speak on our platform previously. This year, we'll have a returning panelist in Energia. Energia was on a panel 2 years ago, and ever since has just been involved in this initiative in various different ways. They've been a huge supporter of the platform. These are the kind of partnerships we want to look to build upon year over year. Imagine how much stronger this effort becomes when we have fiscal sponsors who are actually looking to sponsor the service learning work, take on interns, take on fellows, hire Morehouse students to continue this work. That's the long-term vision. And I think in this year, we really are starting to see a little bit of momentum kick in. Whereas for the past 5 years, ever since the year of return, I can say we've been building this momentum. This year, I'm really feeling it kind of kick in the second gear. And that's something I'm very excited about.
Mm. How does Africa Awareness Week, would you say, empower students and also African diaspora to engage with and contribute to sustainable development on the continent?
So to that, I would say, first let me take it back to 2020.
Sure.
In 2020, um, as we were planning that panel discussion, you mentioned the gift and the curse that was COVID. First of all, I live in California, and I planned and helped coordinate that entire panel or that entire series of panels from here, right? And as we were planning it, and as we were doing some of the initial, coming soon flyers and things of that nature, I was reached out to by the National African Student Association. And National African Student Association came to the table. We worked together in a hand in glove partnership that year. And one of the beautiful things that came out of that partnership was, as the panels were planned, National African Student Association, for anyone that doesn't know about them, they are a national organization that represents African Student Association clubs on campuses across the country. Mm-hmm. Right. So just about every, campus across the country, if you see your local African Student Association club, it is a member of this national organization. Well, because of that partnership, Africa Awareness Week that year in 2020 was broadcasted in 14 universities across the country. Mm-hmm. And actually, two local African student associations got so excited during the planning phase that they hosted panels of their own. One of their panels actually became one of our panels. We deferred to them, and we handed one of them, the panel, and we watched their panel, right? From Morehouse students were watching online a panel that was being produced by students at the University of San Diego. And I saw a huge vision that year of what this conference could truly become. It does not have to just be a Morehouse conference, although the roots of it obviously began at Morehouse, and we want to, Morehouse to obviously be the leader of it. Since that time, since 2020, every year since, we have leaned into these kinds of partnerships, and we have looked for ways to leverage this working relationship with the National African Student Association. Um, there's many stories and too long for me to fit in a sound bite. So I'm going to try to pick a few, highlights of this partnership out here and what it means for this year's event and looking forward. Most recently, the National African Student Association entered into a partnership with the UN Office of the Special Advisor on Africa. And the UN, I hope I say the acronym right, UNSOAA
Mm-hmm.
partnered with Morehouse and the National African Student Association and sponsored a series of um, research papers that students were working on. Some of those students were Morehouse students, others were students at University of NYU, all over the place, right? And those research papers really served as the backbone for a lot of the work that went into the panels for this year's event. So actually, at the end of this year's event, we're going to be producing a report, Morehouse's Africa Awareness Week report. And we're going to be doing that in partnership with the Africa Center out of New York. They're represented on one of the panel discussions. And the idea here is this is going to be Morehouse's forward-facing plan to take us the next 5, hopefully 10 years and beyond, in terms of how we intend to engage in our very meaningful work on the continent. So, what I'd like to see happen is we are building on specific projects and reporting in every year for the next 5 years so that every year it doesn't become something entirely new that we just do for 1 year. But it's something that has a very meaningful and engaged, Morehouse backed, sort of plan to it. As an example of what I'm talking about, at our 2023 conference, we ended up working with Howard University, right? And Howard University came to the table. Some, Bruins out there might know that Howard launched the Year of Africa, which I believe was their academic year 2024. And they spent their whole year doing a whole series of PR events. They had the Beyond the Return initiative come speak to the students. There was actual, opportunities for students to interview for internships, fellowships, jobs, African-based companies. I mean, it was a campus-wide outreach effort to Africa. Well, we ended up having on our panel that year a professor named John Woods, who is working on the continent as an intermediary. He's a professor in Howard's Law School, and Howard Law School has become an intermediary on the Africa Free Trade Agreement. So this professor, during the panel discussion, offered Morehouse students an opportunity to come with them to Ghana to work on the Africa Free Trade Agreement from a legal and economic perspective. Morehouse MBA students, as well as political science students, were offered that opportunity. Many of them took advantage of that opportunity, right? So and another example of many of one-off things that sometimes happen and you would get excited about, and then we don't always see the follow-up year over year, right? Like I would love to see this year, right, like a report out on that and even a build on that relationship, right? We were so occupied with the new work that we were doing with the National African Student Association and the UN Office of the Special Advisor. We just forgot about all of that, and we started something new. Well, I for one want to really start grounding ourselves in work that we can actually track for a minimum of a 5-year period, so that we don't get these huge, exciting one-off things happen as a collective that we don't always end up capitalizing on in terms of a relationship perspective, and building on them year over year. So I would say that to answer your question directly, is when I talk about the students and the opportunity for the students, I also have to talk about the professors, because the professors are the ones there on the ground on the campus, they're creating and working with me to create the opportunities for the students. So what we're looking to do, what we're trying to do, is ground this work in some academic work on the campus that the students can be a part of as students, but even when they graduate, come back as panelists themselves to say, hey, this initiative changed my life. Like it changed my life almost 20 years ago as a student at Morehouse, working on African Awareness Week, like I mentioned to you, changed my life and career in so many different ways we might not even have time to get into on this call. But what I'm doing by continuing to work on it is paying it forward for students to have that opportunity. And imagine what happens if there are more people like me in the future, folks who are doing work on the continent. And at this point, we have, at least from Morehouse, a pretty deep bench of Morehouse alumni, Spelman alumni, doing meaningful work on the continent, who are contributing to panels and discussions on this platform. We want to, lean into that, right, and connect these opportunities to real life, ongoing things that can be offered to students either as students on a limited basis or even beyond, right? If you actually want to turn this into a career, there's a whole avenue for you to do that as
Tap in.
well.
I think that's excellent. I think for me, you're clearly the embodiment of the way students could be empowered, and later on as well. So decided to take on the baton and just carry on the great work that has been done so far. So let's just take a very short break and we can continue with our conversation. Hello again. So if you're watching us, so we're talking about the Awareness Week 2025 that's organized by Morehouse College. And we're having a John Moore, who's the main coordinator for putting together this event. And we're learning a lot, right? So this is an event that's been running for more than 30 years. This year is coming up the 19th of February all the way to the 21st. You definitely want to pay attention to that. And let me just bring John back because, like I say, so we've been talking about some very interesting things so far. And I wanted to know, like I say, we're going to have very exciting discussions, right, on sustainability. By the way, I said the 19th to the 21st. That's not correct because 19th to the 21st, those are the panel that obviously I'll be moderating.
Your panels,
It's actually starting from the 17th, if I'm correct.
17.
Yeah, it's actually a week-long event. Yeah, that is great. But we definitely going to have some very exciting panels. So those are the ones that I'll be running, not just because I'm running that, but obviously because I've had the pleasure to look at what they really sort of tapping into, and also I've been involved into the planning, as you said. So we're talking about battery manufacturing, water solutions, renewables energy, all topics that are very, very interesting, and like I say, that people want to hear about. So, what do you hope those discussions will achieve concretely for Africa, but also global partners?
Well, I hope that we get industry experts, we get companies, we get other academics, other folks involved in policy work to attend these panel discussions, but not attend them as just attendees, but to see the potential of what it is that we're trying to build here. The power of getting HBCUs in particular involved in work on the continent, I don't think can be overstated, right? Imagine how powerful it is if every HBCU in America got together and said, we want to, in a unified manner, connect with Africa. We talked about how the year of return served as an impetus for this effort sort of being rebranded and relaunched in 2020. Well, what happens if other countries in Africa follow suit and do their own year of return? Kenya, Senegal, Nigeria doing years of return, right? HBCU graduates and students working together to, bolster efforts that are, happening on a political, economic level. We talk about let's just, kind of go through the steps here and the stacks, like starting off on the academic level. I've had very meaningful conversations with Morehouse about an outwardly facing 5-point plan that we sort of drafted, put together for the university to, in a meaningful way, recruit students at the high school level from Africa, right? So as we lean into scholarships, opportunities for students in Africa to go to school at HBCUs, what does that look like? As those students begin engaging in research work that is focused on their homeland, what does that look like? Once they graduate and they get out of the academic environment and they're in a very meaningful way involved in work in their professional lives, how does that look? From the economic perspective, we talked about the African Free Trade Agreement. Howard University being involved in the Africa Free Trade Agreement. I mean, that's huge, right? And if Howard University is talking to Morehouse and Morehouse is talking to Tuskegee, Tuskegee is talking to Florida A&M University, and we all start to lock hands, and the diaspora reconnection starts right here on American soil, right, in the academic environment. And it's a forward-facing, unified outreach to Africa. How powerful could that be? I get goosebumps talking about it, right? And then you start talking about these years of returns that could happen from continent to or from country to country, right? We've had some working relationship with Kwame Nkrumah University. That's just Ghana, right? This year, we're going to have the University of Johannesburg involved. We hope that results in some ongoing academic partnerships, right? In a very real sense, I started this panel talking about you don't build the old way by attacking the old way. You build it by building a new way.
Yeah,
This is
that's what I said.
together to build a new way together. From the academic perspective, next is in your professional life. Third is your third phase of your career, which is, when you're a bit more senior in your career, you got hopefully more time and money to reach back, right? That's when you can offer those internships. That's when you can offer those fellowships. That's where you take the ladder and you put it, back down the wall to the folks who are coming up behind you. And in a very meaningful way. I mean, we have seen other communities do this within a generation, right? Max 2. It does not take a long time, right? But it does take, collective focus. It does take unity, and it
Mm-hmm.
does purpose. So that for me is, the power behind what we're trying to do here, and what I hope to see happen. Companies coming in and sponsoring this, companies coming in offering internships. My childhood friend and buddy Franklin Amu of Bayless Capital, after he spoke on the panel discussion at our 2023 panel, extended invitations to a number of students, business students, to come intern for his firm. He's based in the UK, based in London, right? We had a couple students that I understand take advantage of that. So we want to see that happen year over year. And it's more powerful when it happens via an alumni of an HBCU, because it speaks to the bigger model that I think we're trying to build here.
Yeah, so I must say that Franklin, I met Franklin here in the UK, and effective is a very, very remarkable individual and is doing extremely well. Made his capital, as you said. So we're looking forward to working with him as well in the near future. So what would you say to potential attendees? Because we're gonna have some people attending in person. Those are the students, so at Morehouse College, but also virtually, and that's what we're working towards. So why should they participate in this Africa Awareness Week?
So I think this is an opportunity to connect directly to professors at Morehouse. This is an opportunity to speak directly to Morehouse students specifically. If we all do our jobs right
Yeah.
on these panel discussions, there will be a much broader audience than even just Morehouse. We want to be, this is a class. I want to remind anyone attending that these are actual Morehouse classes, and the students have to come first. They get first bidding on the questions. Everyone will be given an opportunity to type their questions into the chat, and hopefully we have an opportunity to get to them. But this is an opportunity for industry individuals and representatives to talk directly to Morehouse staff, right? I really do hope that folks watch this video and get excited about the opportunity so that they can maximize the week, because I don't know too many other opportunities that you're going to have to talk directly to Morehouse staff about curriculum, about seeking academic funding. We're talking about seats of endowment and ongoing funding for various programs like the Environmental Justice Sustainability Program. Morehouse as a whole, sustainable focused department now on the campus. So a lot has changed since I was a student. I was, a little hippie back in the early 2000s. No one wanted to hear what I had to say with my little afro and tie-dyes back in 2002, 2003, walking around campus. Everybody was like, get out of here. Now it's all the rave. Now it's, a common part of conversations, and it's being interwoven into, the academic environment there on campus. So if you work in a sustainability environment, if you're passionate about Africa, I would say this is the panel for you. This is an avenue for you to get involved in not only work, academic work, but actual future on the ground work happening through Morehouse College. But then also to be a part of this vision that I'm talking about, that I really hope that this conference grows into, right? I do hope that the roots of this conference always stay at Morehouse, but I also do hope that we end up partnering with universities in the future, and every day could be hosted by a different university. Imagine, what the future vision for this conference is to turn these panels into actual online learning modules that can actually be used by professors and students, not just at Morehouse, but at universities abroad and in Africa in particular, obviously as well. So imagine being a part of that dialogue, right? And imagine what this could look like 5-10 years from now. Classes are being made, online classes, lectures are being created that can be used 10, 15, 20 years from now. If you want to study 5-10 years from now what the state of the African Free Trade Agreement was back in 2023, you can watch a panel from this series going forward. Being a part of that, right? This is an opportunity for you to be a part of that dialogue. And like I said, I'm thinking about this the same way as everybody thinks about cryptocurrency, right? Like, you get in this thing this early, you could be a part of creating something huge that my hope and my intent is 10, 20 years from now, all of us are looking back like, my God, look at what we've created.
Excellent. And I think the future will tell us where do we go from there. But I must admit, so far, it's looking quite great. So looking ahead, what then are your hope for the future of Africa Awareness Week? It looks like you are very bullish, right, about what could potentially happen. But how do you see it making a difference for the continent and also for the world? I think you've kind of really tapped into that, but maybe there is something much more specific you want to add to what you've already said.
Sure. Yeah, I think for starters, these university partnerships are my first go-to goal. I kind of have a list of 5 to 10 5-year goals, and then 5 to 10 20-year goals. And I would say on my short list of goals for 5-10 years is to lean into these university partnerships. I think Morehouse in particular, but HBCUs more broadly, need to follow Howard University's lead in terms of what they're doing with their law department there. Professor John Woods, shout out to John Woods and the law department over at Howard University. Actually, some Morehouse alumni, some fellow classmates of mine, some former classmates of mine went through his program, and that's how I got in touch with him. So Morehouse students going to Howard for continued advanced studies, master's degrees, etc. That's a pretty common thing. So when you think about these relationships that already exist between HBCUs here on the continent, right, and what that can look when you start rolling in universities abroad, like Kwame Nkrumah University, etc. Um, you know, you think about other ethnic groups, right? And I try as much as possible to not always make conversations just about race, but you have to at some point. But you think about um, other ethnic groups. Many of them offer opportunities for folks from their ethnic group to go do studies abroad whenever they like. I think Israeli students in particular, I've got a lot of Jewish friends, and it baffled me talking to some of them when just about all of them had been to Israel. And I was sort of like, wait, how does this happen? And they basically all almost consistently told me there's like a fund almost out there that exists at almost just about every university, and it's you could be at your local religious facility, wherever. You just go sign up, say you want to go to Israel, you're Jewish, you go. There's money for you to go, right? No questions. You're going to Israel, right? Um, Indians, my wife is Japanese. I can tell you, it's baked into their community as well. Just about every community has some kind of a way, and it's not looked upon as with any level of scrutiny. No one thinks it's weird. No one's asking them about, like, well, why can't I go because I'm not from your ethnic group. No one cares. It's just natural, right? You're Japanese, you want to go back to Japan, and you get to go for a semester, right? I'd love to see something like that happen here, where HBCUs start establishing meaningful relationships with universities on the continent, and it's not a discriminatory thing, right? It's not just a like a if you ain't black you can't go kind of a thing. It's more like this is a natural partnership between HBCU and universities on the ground in Africa. This is a connecting of the diaspora, the beginnings of a connection of the diaspora. I don't know that anything like an HBCU exists in the UK or in Brazil, which is actually, I think, outside of Africa, where the largest concentration of Africans live because of the slave trade. So, conversations like these start to become more dynamic when they're happening in an economic or in an academic environment, across university partnerships on various continents across the country. That's step one. And then for me, step two is just the involvement of the private sector, right? So, it's not quite public-private partnerships; it's public education partnerships, if I could maybe coin that term, right? So, universities grounded in research work partnered with industry, and that's normal for just about every other university, right? Like, how often do the future engineering breakthroughs start at MIT, right, or start at Harvard, right? Um, Policy, you name it, Yale, all the Ivy Leagues. It's never uncommon for things to start in an academic environment and then create a domino effect that then affect the private sector. So um, starting things, incubating things in an academic environment, then moving that on to meaningful partnerships in the private sector. That's like a step two for me. And then step three is relying on people to do what I did, which is pay it forward, right? If you had a quality experience here, right? If you had your life changed through this almost, I'm going to call it Silk Road, to Africa that we just built. Future generations, I would hope 10, 15, 20 years from now, once this thing really gets momentum, would give back and come back to the table and say, you know what, Africa Awareness Week is what resulted in me moving back to the continent, changed my entire life. Or, I wouldn't have not worked for this company, right? Done these things. I mean, that's a big part of my story, right? I working on Africa Awareness Week very much molded and shaped my career as a student from the early days, getting involved in sustainability efforts. Dr. Hewitt really kind of groomed me. She got me into a fellowship program, which I heard about, learned about by working on Africa Awareness Week, and rest is history for me in terms of my career. It all started through my work on Africa Awareness Week. What can that look like in the future for students walking the road that I am trying to help pave myself? That's to me the long-term vision. It looks like number one being more than just Morehouse, other university partnerships. Number two, it looks like industry partners funding this work, seeking future interns, fellows, employees from this environment. And then number three, it looks like folks who have benefited from what we built giving back.
Excellent. That's beautiful. Quick question before we wrap up, which is what we're going to do right now. What is the website for people who want to visit the platform to understand that?
So www.africa-awareness.com. And hopefully, I don't know, your editors can maybe have that scrolling across the screen or something afterwards. I will say, though, the website is being feverishly worked on. Actually, right now, this weekend, I'm all over our website designer. I'm like, you got to have this live by next week. So I hope the upgraded version is live by next week. We've been working hard on it. It's going to turn into an academic tool where you're going to be able to watch the online panels going back for years via the platform. So if you look at it now, you're only going to see the 2023 panels. But hopefully, knock on wood, by end of next week, you'll be able to see everything up on that website link.
Excellent. So let me see if I can show that in here. So I think that is that the one. So
That's it.
Excellent, brilliant. So obviously, people want to see that. That's excellent. So John, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Like I say, so looking forward to hear from you, and then I'm sure there's going to be some very good conversation that people will be able to see. And you definitely want to go and visit the website with www.africa-awareness.com. And I'm sure you'll find out a little bit more. So thank you very much, John. So we actually now coming up to the end of the session. So John, like I say, he's been some powerful insight that you've been sharing here from the Africa Awareness Week 2025. For me, it's very clear that this event is not just about discussion. It's about creating real impact and also building a sustainable future for Africa. And everyone watching, I definitely encourage you to go and visit www.africa-awareness.com. You could see that scrolling down. You're going to learn more about this fantastic event. You're going to register for those panel activities. And whether you're attending in person or virtually, this is, like John said, an opportunity to be part of something meaningful conversation dialogue that I believe will span across generations, but also continent. Yeah, that's what we're looking for here. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. And don't forget, you have to like, comment, and also share the session with people so that we can spread the word about this incredible event. So thank you very much, and see you at Africa Awareness Week. Take care, guys.